You wouldn't do necessarily a novel about a plumber. I'm just saying. I could make him a very interesting character, right? But if you're doing so you eliminate things. So you try to get things that will work for both a novel and a film, and then at that moment, once I have the idea, and it's usually very well formed, I know the beginning, the end, I know the characters, at least a portion of their backstory, the twists and turns, I know the other story drivers within. The story driver, Kevin Tierney, would have been a story driver. Joe would have been an alternate story driver. So I know all of that in my head prior to writing word one. Then, once I know, I write it only as a novel, because there's no guarantee that it will ever be a film. So at that point, it's just got to be the best novel that it can be.
Well, you like mystery and thriller type situation in this one, but you haven't done a whole lot of that before.
Thrillers are tough to write. Thrillers are tough to write well because it's very challenging to come up with something new. Because thrillers, they thrill. It's the easiest way to catch a reader's or an audience's attention. But how do you do it new? How many serial killers have we seen on television and film, right? I mean, there's tons of, we've seen every kind. And so that's the problem, is how do you make it original? I did Danger earlier with a novel. The next novel, it's, I'm not going to say it's dark, but it has some heavy themes in it as the secondary story driver. And I think people will say, wow, I can't believe he wrote that. But it's a love story again. So, that's still at the heart of it. So I will, so that's how I want to, so I find I can vary the themes enough that I keep myself interested in novels. However, I have a television production company, and television is a lot closer to a novel than is a film, because you've got so much more time to tell the story, develop characters, long story arcs, red herrings, whatever you want to do. And so those, for the most part, are totally outside of what I do. I, for instance, have sold 3 projects. We're working on one. One is a Western. It's a female-centered Western set in 1864, and it's exciting. It's in Missouri. Most of the men in town are off at the fighting in the Civil War. It's right on the borders between the Confederacy and the Union, and the citizenship is split half and half. It's going to be a great Western. It's a terrific story. But it's not a love story set in North Carolina in the modern age now, is it, right? I will never direct. I just think that directing is an art form in and of itself, and I think that, as with any art, there is a learning curve associated with it. I've watched movies, but when you start adding up everything, how to work with dogs or little kids, or grumpy actors or actors who are late. There's a whole thing about. That never happened. There's a whole thing about more than okay, does that look like a pretty shot? I mean, there's so much that goes into it, and it is an art form in and of itself. Yeah, I can write screenplays. It's an interesting medium. I can do it well. It's not my bread and butter, and it's, in some ways, it's less fun than a novel, because when you write a novel, you're the king. I mean, you write a screenplay, people come in with notes on you. You're like, what are you talking about? and they win. See, like, if you're working with an editor at a publishing house, they're like, well, in the end, it's your novel. You do what you want. Studios don't say that to the writer. They don't say that to the... I don't know if you're aware of that, but the screenwriter's not exactly the highest on the totem pole out there. And even if I was to do it, I kind of am just a screenwriter.
Well, when you write, do you write with someone in mind to be a cast in that part? And also, I saw something where the actors said that they were improvising to a certain extent. Did they change your words in any way where you wrote notes about it?
Occasionally, I'll cast something in my mind. I knew, for instance, that Miley Cyrus would be in the last song because of the production schedule. I did the screenplay prior to the novel. So I knew Miley would be in it. Occasionally, I'd visualize characters, and it's never been who I imagined it being. I just wrote a novel, just finished one, and it'll be out next fall. I have an idea of who I want in it, and no, you can't know. I will say that every film, every novel I write, the female characters, they're just my wife. That's what I write about over and over again. I mean, they all all my female characters have had some of the same traits, but they're the ones I find most attractive. They're kind, they're honest, they're loyal to right and wrong, they're forgiving. But most of all, I suppose, these female characters are not defined by their men.
Does your wife ever do anything where she says to you, I hope I don't see this in one of your books?
No, it's not that kind of thing. At home, I'm just a writer. I mean, I'm not a famous author or anything. She talks about my job as much as I suppose an insurance salesman's wife would say, hey, did you sell Mr. Smith that term life package you were discussing so excitedly over... I mean, it doesn't happen, right? What'd you do today? I wrote. How'd it go? Oh, it was tough today. Sorry. What do you want for dinner? Or it went great. Oh, super. What do you want for dinner? It's that kind of thing. And it's the same with my kids.